Right then people, so welcome back to another episode of the Legacy Podcast. We're in today for a slightly different episode. We've got two guests with us, but we're doing an in-person episode, so a lot more value that we can gain from this. Quite potentially going to be my favourite episode that we're going to film today, so this will literally be out everywhere. And we're just going to go into a lot of key topics. So episode 138, I guess obviously sort of like as an intro as to why we're here, we are very much on the same sort of frequency for everything. So I'm very, not so much into the spirituality side of things, but networking is everything to me. So understanding where people are on the same energy, we share the same ideas. So we sort of created this weekend really just to sort of let go of everything and really just sort of get us heads together on all things business. So we've just been literally going at it, strategizing, networking, creating new ideas. So ideas are flowing, and what other better way to do this than create a podcast and share some of his ideas with you guys. So I'll hand it over to the two guests. We've got Ibby taking centre stage, Macca as well on the corner, so just take it away. Ibby, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so for those who don't know me, my name's Ibby. I'm a copywriter by origin, let's say, but I've kind of developed into other online skills, which I'm currently exploring and making money off of. But self-improvement's my game. I think that's how we all kind of linked up originally. It was through the gym, through training hard, wanting to get bigger, which I believe is a very, very important part of a man's journey, a man's life. You should always have that kind of physical activity, that physical training, whether that's in the gym, whether that's combat sport, or whether that's just a sport in general. You should always have that thing that you're striving for. So yeah, that's me overall.
Yeah. How did you go into sort of like the copywriting? Because obviously you started into the gym. Where did the sort of like copywriting journey take place from?
So copywriting came from Hustlers University actually.
Right.
Funny enough.
Yeah.
So I was in Hustlers University when it was quite small, about 2,000 members.
Yeah.
I think like at one point it touched 500,000.
It did,
Something crazy. So yeah, I was in Hustlers University, learned copywriting, and basically through Hustlers University was introduced to the whole kind of online money Twitter kind of space. Where you learn like how many skills there are, how many skills you can monetize, how many ways you can make money online, the different routes you can take. There's just so many ways, so many different skills, so many valuable skills, so many problems you can solve. So it really just completely shifted my perspective on everything.
Yeah. For those that obviously don't know what Hustlers University is, we all loved it on this podcast. So essentially Hustlers University was basically like a platform that takes it up, and within that was obviously different lessons, skill sets, and in the name itself a university. So really good way to sort of like network with people, similar to what we've been working on behind the scenes this weekend. Obviously Macca, sort of a little bit of an intro from yourself as well.
Yeah, so you've probably all seen me on the podcast before a few times and on the stories, but my background's sort of accountancy in the financial world, so that's where I've come through the self-improvement game in terms of financial literacy and focusing on that more than anything, and then massively big advocate of the gym training, and recently got into boxing, so 2 days out from your first amateur fight. So mindset's got to be on point at the minute, and I think that's where we all connect us. Just online you attract what you value and your own ethos. So I think me and Josh have spoke over the years about mindset, and obviously the same with Ibby, in terms of mindset and just being self-accountable, being the best version of yourself, and we've all got different skills, but we can all translate that and bring that together into the self-improvement side of things. So I think that's why we connect so well on certain topics, and we've been saying all weekend that we wish the camera was rolling all weekend. The conversation we've had, it's
this podcast that we're doing now, we've probably done about 3-4 podcasts before it, so honestly some of the stuff we've covered, but even just the developmental side of things, obviously me and Macca, obviously we're sort of, I guess, business partners, just people that network type stuff now, but the origin of where things started was obviously he was actually a client of mine, and I guess even if we touch on some business stuff, I think as well sort of things have like a shelf life. So obviously as you're developing, your ideologies may change, your philosophies may change, your goals may change. What we initially started off was just a simple physical transformation, just working on confidence, quite typical black and white stuff. And now obviously things have almost like a snowball effect, so we're always driven. 3 of us stand here right now, we absolutely crave opportunity, and we've created multiple opportunities now, we've got pipeline, we've got projects in the pipeline, so there's all sorts of stuff that can come just from developing right now. But I guess we all sort of met through, Insta predominantly, but it was mainly sort of like the fitness industry. Obviously me with Legacy Fitness Training, it's online coaching, so it's fitness based, personal trainer type stuff. me and Ibby must know each other. I'm talking like, I'd say a good 2017, 2018.
Yeah,
like we're talking a good
now.
couple of years, and this is actually the first time we've linked up in person. So it's definitely good to sort of like, you know, put a name to a face, so to say. But that sort of connection came from fitness. Again, Macca with the coaching. A lot of you guys will already know my sort of story into the gym. You know, she's starting out very skinny, very small, and it was just that sort of desire from change. Most people, when sort of like starting out a goal, you're either moving towards pleasure or away from pain. So my sort of journey into the industry was away from pain. You know, I couldn't fill out t-shirts. For those that are old enough, Top Man is shut down now, so it's weird walking past and not seeing the Top Man stores anymore. It was such an ingrained and big part of my childhood, because I remember going into the change rooms, trying on a small t-shirt, and it was literally baggy, and I didn't know what obviously it was extra small, but before that you just have to go back into kid sizes, and it was sort of like moments like that where you realise I really want something to change. It's not that I needed to change because I wasn't unhealthy, it's just I'd look in the mirror and I was like, something has to change. And it was almost like that hunger to just progress, be better, develop, that sort of formed the foundations to which obviously we're here now. I mean, obviously sort of going back, where was your sort of interest? I know you haven't got many ties into the fitness space, but I guess where was your sort of journey into the fitness space?
I'll be completely honest, the predominant reason that I got into the gym was for girls. Like, straight up, it was for girls. I must have been like 16.
Yeah.
I think it was the year 11 summer. I still remember. Skinny, kind of like lost. I had a lot of time, but I didn't really know what to do with it. I needed some sort of direction, but I didn't know what that was, and I didn't know how I was going to get it. But luckily I ended up signing up to the gym, and I still remember after the first month I saw my arms get like a little bit bigger and literally that was the only motivation that I ever needed. Like, I completely forgot about girls and just fell in love with lifting, getting bigger, tracking what I eat, all that kind of stuff, making sure I'm right. And since then it basically just turned into this 4 or 5 year journey which sort of expanded into self-improvement overall and has led to like a lot of other different areas. So even though, like, for context guys, I'm not as, I'd say, heavy on the lifting as Josh or Macca here, but it's always going to have a special place in my heart because it led me into the whole self-improvement journey overall.
And it still instills a lot of discipline.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of positives you can take away from lifting. The only thing with me is I feel like you can get to a certain point where it can almost stagnate a little bit. Like, if you aren't wanting to become a bodybuilder, then it's like, how do you progress then? Like, where do you take it to the next level if you've kind of reached your natural limit or whatever? And then for me, that was how, similar to Macca, I kind of found boxing, although I'm not at his level yet. But that was like a different challenge for me, and I really, really enjoy that. But I would still recommend, I think it's like one of the easiest ways, like you said, to install discipline, to kind of start your self-improvement journey for any young men out there.
Yeah. You find me a high value man, he's going to have a solid physique, and that's sort of where the resistance training can come into it. I mean, not sort of speak on sort of behalf of Macca, but his story, obviously, you'll see him being a client of mine, you'll notice the transformation that we changed. Whilst you see the physique and the shape that he's in now, you know, he's got his first fight on Monday. It is worlds apart from where he literally first started out. So I mean, without giving too much away, your sort of story into the gym.
Yeah, I was sort of into the gym when I was like 16, again, for girls, just for, even I understood the benefits it could have with confidence and stuff, and I was never, I was saying yesterday, I've always had this sort of belief inside myself that no matter what I do, I know I can do it really well, as long as I just dedicate my time to it. But in terms of what I went through, it was sort of like I lost my footing in lockdown with gym shutting and stuff, and just sent myself down a spiral. And obviously you can have the opposite of a snowball effect. Well, it's the same thing, it's just in the opposite direction, weren't it? So, you know, I ended up being like 20 stone at one point, just unhappy, fat, just not in a good situation, and it just took one decision to make that change, and the rest comes from there. Like, people ask me, what did you do? Did you do running? Did you do swimming? And it's like, you've just got to stick to every day, just get up and do what you need to do to get to where you want to be. And that's it, just that consistency and hard work. Like, it's not going to come easy. And as you say, in there, a high value man, you know, there's two things that you can't buy. There's a good physique and a mindset. And, you know, I think we've all got that here. And that's what I'd say for anyone to focus on before even focusing on the money, is because people are going to respect that.
Yeah, I think as well, like, we've sort of shared our journeys into the gym and stuff like that. The entry points into you that, you know, you see three guys here today, you know, multiple business owners, strategizing, creating new ideas. Things are not always like this, and your philosophies, your desires, your wants, it's okay for them to change. It's very easy to think that because you've thought and felt a certain way, you have to be changed to that for the rest of your life. We initially started the gym, like, I used to crave validation from females so much, and when you're young, you'd all be lying, every man listening to this would be lying if you didn't want to do something to, you know, pull a certain girl or, you know, gain some sort of validation with wearing a certain item of clothing. And we sort of started out wanting that validation and wanting that sort of attention in some ways, but it changed sort of, so it did change, and it took a new path to obviously focusing on ourselves. Where was your sort of, it's hard to word it, but where did things change? Where did you decide to think, right, I'm not doing this for, you know, attention of other women, I'm doing this for me type thing? Was it when you fell in love with the results, or?
You know what, it was a mix of two things. It was when I fell in love with the results, women kind of went out of my mind because I kind of saw what was capable. You don't really believe you're capable of achieving something until it happens, unless you have you're brought up with a very good mindset, very positive kind of mindset, with a lot of self-confidence. For me, I wasn't, just because of who I was, where I came from and stuff. So it was seeing results, but also, if I'm being completely honest, it was discovering like red pill.
Right. Do you want to give a breakdown on a red pill?
Yeah, so I guess red pill it's almost like the truth of the nature of women kind of thing, right?
Right.
Now, to be honest, this sounds quite like incel kind of vibes. I think my take on red pill, like I used to consume the content a few years ago, is that it definitely has some good points. And I think the best point it ever taught me, which definitely impacted my life, and this was from Alpha Male Strategy, so shout out to him, was just be on your purpose. Like literally be on your purpose. As a man, you have a purpose and everything else falls underneath it. And for some reason that stood out to me, stuck with me, and that's basically how I've lived my life, and everything else is just seemingly falling into place. So I think every man can benefit from that. Definitely. My only problem with the red pill is I disagree with some of the teachings, and I think it can get borderline kind of incel. So you got to be careful about where you're consuming the content from. But in terms of like an overall message and like having that drive, and it was definitely, I think, from just being on your purpose. Like as a man, like I fell in love with the idea of having a purpose, being on my purpose, knowing that I can create, knowing that I can turn my reality into whatever I want if I put in the work and I have a long-term goal, and I kind of can delay my gratification and just keep working. And it was the overall thing, just having those short-term wins but also striving for long-term ones.
Definitely. Reminds you of the Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. So it's one of them ones where he who has a why can endure anyhow. The book itself obviously focuses on sort of like experiences with sort of like Nazi concentration camps and the resilience and sort of the how he's able to endure the, you know, the sheer shit that he just went through purely by having a why. So it's anybody that doesn't have a why in this modern day and age will essentially become susceptible to distractions. So I am talking women, I'm talking casual flings, I'm talking, you know, engaging in pointless activities that have no relation to your vision and your goals. So the biggest turning point for this podcast and what you can do to get your shit together like we did is literally just having your purpose and defining your why. And I find the more, don't just look into your pain points, but literally get a knife and frigging prod the thing. So like think about, you know, what, look yourself in the mirror. There's a clip from Jordan B. Peterson. He says, if you're looking to get something done, sit yourself on the floor and address what it is that you don't like about yourself, address what it is that you want, and have that tough conversation with yourself. And it will be an uncomfortable thing, but literally on the back end of that, you're going to come out of a why, you're going to come out of a reason, a purpose, and you'll find all of these typical black and white barriers. I'm talking consistency, adherence. You'll just break right through them because you've got a why and you can endure anyhow, so to say. But and obviously sort of with the whole female validation thing, where did things sort of, I guess, change for you as well?
I never used to struggle with it past a certain age, and then I found myself in like quite a long relationship, and it was good for a while, don't get me wrong, and then it just turned a bit toxic, and like we all know, like female shit testing and stuff like that, so that started happening, and obviously in lockdown it was a bit hard for me. A lot of other things just piled on.
Definitely.
And then that's where I sort of found like the red pill side of things, and I can sort of echo what Ibby was saying, and mine was mainly like Rich Cooper, so I recommend him. But I'd say once you get past a certain point, and I feel like that's the same in the self-improvement side of things as well, you need to understand what it is, but then you need to go out and use it. You can't just be consuming content on it. It's not going to inevitably make you any better. But in terms of what we were saying about the getting into the journey of finding your purpose, I just feel like people need to spend more time alone with themselves. I see people that are always out partying on the weekends, they'll be with family members, just friends, going for drives, whatever. They don't spend any quality time with themselves to understand themselves enough, and we always say about self-awareness is massive. So I started with journaling. That was a big key factor for me, just to write down what I'm doing on a daily basis, how I feel, what I'm grateful for, and from there you can just start to transcend that to where you actually want to be and what your purpose is. Like, if you've gone through something, it's probably more than likely someone else has gone through that as well, you can then go and build upon that and help other people to solve what you've gone through yourself. So I'd say look internally and then try and emulate that to help others externally.
I think the consuming point is almost just as bad as continuing to engage in the self-limiting and toxic behaviours that you're currently doing. I guess almost like a story for me is, obviously I'm big on my books, big on audibles. I've got a bookcase out there that is full of books, and I literally used to read so many books, and I've read pretty much every single self-development and business book, and I would wonder why it is that I wasn't growing, or I would wonder why it is that I'm not actually changing type thing. So literally I would just focus on reading the books, but nothing would actually be going in. So I'd be reading the books, but nothing would actually be applying. Whereas the main thing that I sort of learned looking forwards now is, you want to read the books, you want to consume the content, but actually make sure that you're actioning it. I'd be reading, I read like Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, How to Influence and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and yet off the back end of those books, I wasn't any richer, I was still broke, I was still a loser, I was still wanting validation from people. And almost like Macca said, I look back in the times when I was sort of like at my lowest and stuff like that. I never had the balls to be on my own and sort of have these tough conversations with myself. So the consuming is a very easy trap to fall into. You're listening to this podcast, we're going to give you some very, very valuable take-homes to get shit together and turn your life around. It's not enough to just listen to this podcast. Like, if you're going to listen to this podcast and not really do anything, I'd probably just stop listening now. You want to make sure that you're actually applying this, and I've got a notepad out here, get a notepad out and write notes, and I promise you that is where the progress will come from. But I guess obviously sort of looking into almost like problems with society, we've sort of covered a couple here. Obviously I've done a bit of talking now, but I guess in regards to, issue, it doesn't necessarily have to be male like focus, but I guess with the problems of society, I know you said you had a good answer. Where do you sort of see things at right now?
So the biggest problem, I think, with, should we say, Western society?
I think Western, all Western people, so yeah.
With the biggest problem I found with Western society is that we're kind of living in unprecedented times, meaning that there is no kind of silver line anymore, There's no more barriers, everything's kind of on the table, there's nothing's off limits anymore. And listen, I'm all for progressivism, is that a word? All for people like expressing themselves and whatnot, but I do think you need certain rules in place. Otherwise things are just gonna get a bit out of hand, a bit chaotic, and people are gonna take things too far, which is where I think where we're at right now. In terms of what we're seeing with, a lot of the like gender issues that we're facing at the moment, and things of that nature. So I think the biggest issue is that we're living in a time period in history which has never happened before. Like, humanity has never been exposed to a society like the one we're currently living in, and we're kind of seeing the like pitfalls and downfalls and consequences of that in real time. And I feel like it's only going to get worse. I feel like the West really do need to take a leaf out of the East's book, and just have stricter rules, stricter laws in place, and maybe stick to what's worked for like the course of history, rather than always trying to change things. Again, I'm sure all of us would say that we're all for adaptation and improvisation and moving with the times and all that kind of stuff, but then some of the things you see are just like straight up ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think for me it's the whole like, people are too easy to just sort of like bend over and just take it, like whatever's put forward to them, it's just like I've spoke to people before, like when we had the first jobs, and it's like initially there's always going to be resistance. When you take someone outside of the comfort zone, it's always going to be met with resistance, but that resistance wasn't resistance in the way that it used to be. It was like, I don't want this, and then before you know it, it was 3 jobs down, 4 jobs down, I'll stop coming out my house, I'll let you shut my business down. And I feel like one of the, as an extension onto Ibby's point, is there's no resistance anymore. It's just almost like this is what's happening. People, there'll be no, why is this happening, or why should I listen to you, and do you really have my best interests? And I feel like that's sort of like an issue to work on, really.
I feel like that's as a result of how people have been conditioned and kind of programmed to think from the powers that be.
Yeah.
I feel like they've done it so well. To the point where like we live in a time period now where people don't even question things anymore. They just go with whatever they're told, which is super, super dangerous. And like there hasn't ever been a single civilization in the history of mankind who has just gone along with whatever they've been told and it's ended well. Like it just doesn't happen. So it's a very, very dangerous time to be living, I feel like.
Yeah. I think it's just everybody as I said, sort of thing, everybody wants to be right rather than be true. A lot of people will have, everyone will think when you look in the mirror and you think certain things to yourself, or you'll see a certain video, you'll interpret that in your own perception, which you believe to be true, and you'll speak out about that. Or some people won't even go as far as to speak about what they believe to be true in fear of what is obviously right. So Tay being a very, very similar example. I can post something on my Instagram, someone's going to reply, and it's going to be met with resistance. But one, I've got my values as to why I support it, and two, those values don't change or deviate for no one. You have to understand that if you're going to consistently change your opinions and viewpoints to become high value, both man and woman, you have to learn to be true to yourself. So if you are raising a point and someone is resisting that point, and you instantly change that, what does that show about you as a person? It shows that you still want validation from people, and you can't even trust your own words. So how can you, all of your relationships, all of your opportunities that you'll find in life are reflections off of what you have of yourself. So if you can think something, you can feel something when you look in the mirror and instantly change it, you're essentially your own Judas. You're essentially betraying yourself. So what is that going to say for the people that you start to attract into your life? Do you really deserve success? Do you really deserve nice things in life? So for me, the idea of you have to focus on being true rather than being right. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be, there's going to be scrutiny. There's going to be resistance, but people are going to respect you for it more. As long as you can get past that first hurdle, people will always respect you more.
Yeah, I'd say on that as well. I feel like people have lost the ability to be a critical thinker, and they almost don't have their own opinion. They just regurgitate what their role models say. So if there's a certain person that you look up to, whatever they say is gospel to them. They just believe what people say, and it's the same with the media and propaganda. It's always been a thing in the wars and stuff, but I feel like now more than ever, people just see something and believe it instantly. They don't check what sources are credible. They don't understand things, so they just don't think for themselves anymore. People don't think for themselves anymore. They just take what one person says, and that's gospel to them. And as I was saying, with things I might have been wrong about in the past, I'm willing to hold my hands up and say I was wrong about that. No, I understand it a bit more better now. Where people, as you were saying about being rather being true than being right, so I think that fits in with that point. That's what I see as a massive issue today, is people are just willing to just be a sheep.
I think it's like and again, this is the whole idea of people have, you've all got your own viewpoints and stuff like that, but you almost need someone else to do the work for you. So again, sort of go back into the whole Tate thing, or it could even be something like, let's say, Donald Trump or like Katie Hopkins. People will feel a certain thing, and if, say, Katie Hopkins shares about it, you'll then obviously voice it out because you've got the validation that you can conform within certain people. It's like you had the Balenciaga incident, obviously, with the whole like child thing. Of course, the notion of it is obviously completely messed and fucked up, but what you had is people, and this is predominantly influencers, and obviously their influencers will obviously gain like correction from this, but you had the influencers that were, but bear in mind, I've got Balenciaga stuff, you had all these influencers that were cutting up and chopping up the stuff, but they was doing it, they just coincidentally happened to be posting it, and when they post it, what's going to happen? All these little followers, you got John from down south, Sarah from up north, and they'll be like, you go what, you're my favourite influencer. So the influencer doesn't care whether the people are getting trafficked or not. The transaction will still be made at Balenciaga, and they're still pushing their agenda. But this whole sort of thing for like people needing to validate their own choices, it's just toxic. So like people were doing this, and then you get all these tribes of people, and they're just focusing on just being right and gaining validation from everyone. There's no sort of free-form thinking anymore, which I sort of came into contact with through lockdown, because as a personal trainer back then, your entire business was gone in the blink of an eye, so you had to learn to be adaptable. So adaptability is something about that we all share and feel very strongly about, I'd say.
I think another part of the issue is that a lot of people are just closed-minded.
100%.
They're not actually willing to change their opinions, even if they were proven wrong. You know, it's whatever they're told, whatever they feel like is the right thing in this scenario.
Yeah.
They will stick to, regardless of if it is right or wrong. So, it's it's with these people. I honestly just I look at them as brick walls. I don't even debate with those kind of people. It's just a waste of time unless I truly think that you are willing to engage in an open-minded debate. I don't really see the point. And unfortunately, so many people are now at that kind of like robotic NPC kind of stage where like they literally aren't willing to engage in anything. You know, if something goes against their agenda, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line, you know.
Do you think there's an issue where, like, as soon as I'll be the first to, you know, make a joke out of something, but there's some seriously messed up stuff going on in the world right now, and I feel like our reaction, especially with sort of our age range, with the whole, like, you know, mid-early 20s, I feel like our only reaction is to just make a meme out of something. Like, you'll have literal wars going on, or like you know, you've got men going through, like, in the public figure, like you have Will Smith, Kanye. These guys are going through full-on, like, traumatic, monumental breakdown shit, and our response is to humiliate type thing. There has to be some sort of, like, because, you know, back when sort of like wars were going on, like I'm talking World War I, World War II, historical events, young guys our age were like, you know, there were people that used to lie about their age just to get, like, enlist themselves. There wasn't I feel like the reaction, there has to be some sort of knock-on effect, whether it not be now, but years down the line, I think whether it softens us, makes us less conditioned, because we can all be drafted by law, so it's you've almost got to live your life as if you're going to get drafted tomorrow, and I just feel like the response to what we see now, we'd all be fucked instantly.
How many of the people, sorry to cut you off, bro, how many of the people who are identifying as something other than what they are, do you reckon would actually enlist if they got drafted then?
Not a clue.
Honestly, like, I would love to see that. But like, back to your point, I think one of the biggest issues is that people basically they've got no war, they've got no major war, they've got no major purpose, so they find little things to kind of get triggered about, or to get emotional about, or to get annoyed about, because they have nothing else. There's nothing else going on in their lives. There's no great event that's gone on during our lifetime. So it's like you pick out all these little stupid things that really don't need more attention than what people are actually giving it. But that's where we are right now. I feel like, honestly, like, as bad as this sounds, like, touch wood, but if there was like another world war, for example, I think a lot of the shit you're seeing now would not exist after that. Like, just...
I just feel like it's that we live in such an easy time now. Like, apparently poverty's on the rise, and the gap's getting bigger between, and I feel like that's in everything. The gap's just increasing, so if you're wealthy, you're just going to get more wealthy. If you're poor, you're going to get more poor. Obviously, whose fault that is a debate in itself. But then you've got that on the other side of things, like the victim mentality. Like, I've been there, I've been a victim of that myself, and it is down to you. You've got to take that personal accountability. But in terms of, like, the war and stuff, like, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that people don't see, that they don't want you to see.
Yeah, definitely.
And if it did happen and we got drafted, like, a lot of people just wouldn't take it seriously at all, because one, the people we've got in place now, like, people don't take them seriously enough. So, like, if it was like a Winston Churchill figure, people
just make a meme
memes.
Out of it. It's
like,
crazy.
Could you imagine that in today's
live streaming
society?
on the front line and stuff like that? Like,
it makes you almost feel there's almost a level of shame to it, because like Ibby said, I understand that nothing like that has happened in our time and stuff like that, but that's not to say that, you know, we all went to school as part of the curriculum to understand these things. So it's just weird how, just because there's nothing going on now, we need to pick apart these little things to create issues. A lot of people will crave trouble, but they'll hate resistance. So with the whole sort of lack of accountability now, I'll see people, so say for example, I always say this to my partner here, where she's from, it's not the real world at all. And what happens is you get people that'll, to put it simple, people get bad on social media, but where she's from, there's no repercussions. So like, people will say something, they'll post a photo like someone's car being parked like a twat, and yet no one will go up to their house and put the fucking windows through. There's no accountability for people's actions now, and I feel like people crave trouble. They'll be the first to leave a nasty comment on someone's photo. They'll be the first to, you know, speak bad about someone, or, you know, if someone gets a nice car, it's daddy's money, or drug dealer and stuff like that. But yet, if it was in person or if shit really hit the fan and there was some sort of scenario, you'd pussy out instantly. I think the accountability is definitely something that is missing at the moment, for sure. But I guess as well, I think sort of going into, you know, problems with society, as I just even mentioned them, sort of like touching on what people think of with success. One of my things as well, and this is obviously, you got to think, we're all sort of young as in his 20s, fitness orientated, so a lot of his time is going to be spent like tracksuits. And I mentioned this yesterday, how like I'll be seen with 2 phones, I wear a night tech or like a Moncler, drug dealer instantly. But then I switched this up one day and I had like a nice brown overcoat on, I had a polo on, we just come for a Costa, and this old man that actually came and spoke to me. And you sort of got to think in these scenarios, if I was dressed how I was, I'm still running the same businesses, I'm still the same Josh Clark, would he have obviously spoke to me different? And from what I've seen, the biggest issue is that people think with their eyes. The eyes are an organ, a muscle that you visualise, you take in visual images and information with. They're not for thinking with, and that for me is the biggest demise that I see right now, for sure.
Yeah, guys, don't use it as a cop out either. You know, I hear a lot of people say, you know, I'm comfortable within myself to like dress kind of down and stuff, and I just want to be comfortable, and I don't really care about my appearance and this, that, and the other. And listen, all power to you. But the truth of the matter is that you are judged on your appearance. That's the only thing people know about you when they first meet you. So when you look at it that way, how you dress can literally open up doors for you, can open up networking opportunities for you, connections, etc. You know, use it to your advantage. You might not like the rules of the game, but understand them and prosper.
Yeah, I think I've never really liked that quote, don't judge a book by its colour, because
you
walk into a bookstore, the first thing you're looking at is the colour, like that's going to intrigue you, that's going to make you buy that book. It's like marketing 101, like people need to start understanding that as soon as someone meets you, within the first 5 seconds, they've made their mind up about you already, what do you think your interests are, what do you think you do for a living and stuff like that. If you've got a nice car, people are going to presume you've got a good job, like it's just the way it is. So as we were saying, you've got to play that to your strength and make sure that you are looking after yourself and your appearance, and obviously don't let that be a cover up for being shallow as well. You know, have some character about it as well, and then go and be a knowledgeable person, go and read books, go and get mentors and invest in yourself. But that's the first thing, and it's not hard, like anyone can look good, like simply go in the gym, getting a haircut, as we all speak about, and just finding clothes that fit you. It doesn't necessarily have to be Balenciaga, it could be Next, a nice white t-shirt. It's just about the fit. I've always said fit over fashion all day.
I think as well there was certain stuff, like especially as a man, in life there are strictly 2 things and 2 things only. There are things in your control and things outside of your control, and whatever your sort of perception of us lot may be, stoicism is a massive part of each of our lives. And stoicism really is almost like where it's pretty much sort of like altering me onto like a new path of life. So stoicism is really like a new perspective that's massively impacted me, and the Stoics are massive for focusing on things that they can control and things that are within their power to change. And again, a quote from Marcus Aurelius: the more time that we spend focusing on things out of our control, the less control we actually have. And within your sort of self as a man, there is certain stuff within your control. And I truly believe if you can just start your day by focusing on those things, I'm talking, and it's not to become high value, you don't have to do some mega complex shit, it's simple stuff. So if you can wake up on time without snoozing your alarm, have some sort of shit that you don't want to do. So for me, it's like cold showers, I wake up early and I go to the gym. If you can put in effort into the way that you dress, you know, see, we all sort of dress decently now, we're going out tonight, we're going to have some nice fitted clothes, and we'll pay attention into our appearance, that little stuff. You can be open-minded to learn new stuff. Then the more that you can focus on what's in your control, when you are faced with shit like losing your job, or shit like a breakup, or could be even something physical like being in a crash, your response to those things, you're going to be more equipped to deal with them type thing, because these things are going to hurt either way, they're going to like suck either way. But in those things happen. Like, you can't help it if your wife leaves you, you can't help it if you lose your job, but you can control your reaction. If you can control your reaction, I've been in some genuinely shitty situations, and I look back on them now, I'd go for them 10 times over again, just because of what I gained from them.
Yeah, I resonate with that massively. I think even as you're saying, like a breakup, obviously that's what sort of spiked me to change myself. And you don't understand in the moment and if people run into like the victim side of things as well, like you can either, I was delivered with a choice, you can either be the same or you can take yourself upon this self-improvement journey. And at the time, you know, I wasn't in the best place, so that was a kick in the teeth as well to say, you know, your ex has just left you and you're not in the best place. Like, thing we all know about women is the monkey branch and they'll date up like socially, economically. So it's a hard pill to swallow, but you either get better or you don't, and as time goes on you're just delaying that chance to get better, and it will inevitably get harder as well with age. So why not do it whilst you're young? And I think that's why our demographic's such big on the younger generation, is because we can influence them and change their mindset on it growing up, and instill good benefits and habits into them to become high value people in the future. So it's pretty hard to change someone who's a bit old and stuck in the ways, isn't it? So well, that's why we try and focus on the younger generation.
I think as well, like earlier on in the podcast, we focused a lot on purpose. I actually did a video on this. It's almost like quite like a harsh hitting thing, but if you genuinely take a step back and think, in this world, the only thing we have really is his name and his purpose. Outside of that, I genuinely believe everything is superficial and fake. Your wife can leave you at any time, you can lose your job, you can go broke, and it happens all the time, it happens everywhere. So I feel like the only thing that you really have is your purpose, and I feel like if you don't have your purpose, everything else is synthetic. Like if you're just a guy, and we spoke about it yesterday, not to go into it, but we've had sort of like, maybe not male role model figures, but we've been around guys and men older than us in the older generations where they're straight up bums, they have nothing going for themselves, and it just so happened that, you know, relationships didn't work out, you know, bonds weren't the best, opportunities didn't create themselves, they wasn't able to bounce back from failure. And I feel like if you can equip yourself with a strong purpose, everything else just becomes that little bit more fruitful. Like for example, I've been in good relationships, I've also been in really bad relationships. The one that I'm in now wouldn't change for the world, but I wholeheartedly believe that I'm the one to thank for that, because I spent time to have tough conversations with myself, got used to being on my own, went through shitty stuff, and a lot of the scenario getting into this was because I knew who I was, I knew what I brought to the table, I know my purpose, and that doesn't change for no one can pull me off of that. Whereas going into the more toxic and worse relationships, I'd always been like, I'd put on an outfit and I'd almost put like a little bitch up, like tell me I look good and stuff like that, or like, you know, like she'd go out, and because I wasn't confident in myself, it wasn't in like a controlling way, but I'd be like, you're gonna talk to the guys, and you know, like proper simpy, like sappy shit, and lo and behold, broke up, heartbroken, all that type of shit. And you sort of look on both ends of these things, both of those things can change at any time. I can be single right now, everything can change, but one thing remains is I'm still gonna be Josh Clark, I'm still gonna have my purpose, and those things are never gonna be lost, sort of thing. It really is all that we have, isn't it?
I think everything you literally just spoke about ties into that kind of age-old discussion about happiness. You know, anything external can be taken away instantly. All we really have in this world is the internal. So it's like, if you are on your purpose and you have that mindset and you know where you want to be in life, and you've got Macca's self-confidence, and you know, you're at that stage, realistically you can go through anything in life. If you adopt that kind of stoic mindset, anything can test you, and you're gonna come out a better man, an improved man for it. You know, I think that's the beauty of stoicism. It can literally prepare you for hell on earth, and you're still gonna come out. It really is a life hack, guys. I think if there's anyone, you know, watching this who's recently started their self-improvement journey or doesn't know much about stoicism and wants to, I would highly recommend learning about it.
Even if it's just book recommendations, I've got tons for you, but I think like with the whole, you know, working on your ideas, working on sort of like you as a person, the more you can just become committed to actually developing yourself, you're just going to set yourself up for success, you know, time and time again. And I think as well, like so I read Letters of Seneca review. So one of the things there, and I think it was in another sort of stoicism book, you don't really refer to yourself as a stoic, but you are a practicing stoic, because to be a practicing stoic means there's no start point, nor is there an end point, it is simply just a way of life. So if you do sort of find yourself in that, the idea and the end goal is not to become a stoic master. There are no, of course, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, these guys are obviously good, these are teachers, but even these guys themselves, if you get an insight into their mind, they still see themselves as sort of like, not bottom of the pile, but again, a practicing stoic. You don't become a stoic, you don't earn your wings, it's simply just a way of life. And it sort of, obviously we've all had the struggles, me in particular, I used to really struggle being present in the moment. where like I'd do certain things and I was just completely emotionless. You know, so I passed my driving test, and that should have been something that I was happy about. But I remember, you know, she said that it passed, and I just had no emotion whatsoever, like a little bit of a smile. And if you can sort of learn to become a practicing better you, a practicing high value man, a practicing stoic, you're always going to learn to find joy and fulfillment in the Stoics called a good life, sort of like finding peace, contentment, sort of like stress-free life. If you can become a practicing stoic, you'll learn to find peace and become present in moments. And lo and behold, since becoming a practicing stoic, I've learned to become more present in the moment, so I'd say.
I think one book recommendation I'd say is, I'm not sure if you guys have read it, Ikigai, which is the Japanese term for happiness. And there's a place in Japan, Okinawa, and they live to like 90, like
wow.
that's like the average age is 90, and they find that the main thing is they socialise all the time, so they continue, like, I think the stigma in the UK, I'm not sure what it's like in America, but 65 retirement age, and that's when you lose your purpose then, and you see people just, you can almost see the time running out in them as soon as they hit that age. Like, obviously you've got other factors like alcohol, cigarettes and stuff, which is obviously not good for health terms, but the purpose goes from them as soon as they, you know, they've been working in this company for the whole life, and they'll hit 65 and they don't know what to do with their life, and they stop going out to socialising communities, and that's it then. They just, time's just of the essence for them. It's a matter of time until you know, they do pass, and that's what that book goes into, is how big on purpose, and it is a guide to happiness, and it's just proven like their average life expectancy is between like 70 and 90. Like they must be doing something right to be living that long.
I think as well, one of my main things that I saw, and I'll always say it because I've seen it with my own eyes, and it's genuinely like saddening to see, because we sit here now where we was young boys, and we had goals, we wanted to be fucking spacemen, firefighters, take over the world, and now like I see people where they get buried at 75 but they die at 20. Like, I've seen Walking Dead men at 20 years old, and you see that thing and it's like, there has to be something that can change to sort of, and it all just resorts back to your purpose. If you can have a purpose, you're going to be set for life, but without that, ask yourself what is the point? Because again, of course everybody wants to be a family, wants to be providers, but if you can have your purpose, you're going to be able to be a better you, which means a better you means a better dad, means a better partner, a better husband, a better brother, a better male role model. You know, we do this podcast, we want to influence guys that were in our position. Me sort of having no sort of, a lot of us obviously with minimal father figures, I want to be able to fix that. So, you know, it's the more that you can work on yourself, you're going to attract better relationships. So I guess that's sort of like a good way to round off the podcast episode, to be fair, is that pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. I'll be honest, I had about 4 sentences here, and we pretty much deviated and covered a lot of stuff, but these are the best types of podcasts where we can really sort of cover some detailed stuff. But like I say, from my behalf, that's everything that I wanted to cover, and it was a really good episode. I mean, anything for you two?
Just want to say that ending was very, very powerful, bro. It's so true, man. You know, like, self-improvement isn't just for yourself, it's for to stretch it out. It's for the world on some level. You know, you have to change yourself before you change the world. But it starts with you, and then it starts with the people you impact, and then it starts with the people who see that, and then the people closest to you, and your friends and your family. And you know, it's a beautiful thing, honestly. And I want to go back to something you said earlier as well, because we were just talking about purpose again. Your recommendation was to spend time on your own. That's the best way to find your purpose. For anyone watching this who's like not really sure, hasn't really found their purpose, I think that's the best advice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Right, guys, so we'll wrap up the episode, and I'll see you shortly for the next episode.